Welcome back, everyone. Let's now welcome the first panel session to start our day, entitled Harness the Power of Public-Private Partnership to Build Trusted and Secure and Ethical Digital Environment. Moderating this session is Victor Loh, the Head of Cybersecurity, Malaysia Digital Economy Corporation, MDEC. Victor is an experienced professional with more than 20 years of experience in information security and risk consulting, having specialized in security solution in the cyber threat intelligence framework. So with that, over to you, Victor.
Good morning, Mr. Hasro. Thank you for the introductions. Right, I'm your panel speaker for the morning. Right, I'm the first segment panel speaker. Today, our topic will be roughly what our introduction is, that the partnership of mutual benefits is required to enhance cybersecurity, since no organization has the full picture, right? So I think that with me today is that it's my honor to introduce the line of panel. With me today is that we have three very experienced panel speakers. Let me introduce our Ms. Azleyna from NACSA. Basically, Ms. Azleyna is the Principal Assistant Director of Cyber Intelligence, Legal Divisions, National Cybersecurity Agencies, a division responsible in developing, implementing strategies, actions planned to enhance Malaysia's cyber law to address current and emerging threats and enhance the capacity and capability of cybercrime enforcement. So that's a very long introduction and very long experience of Ms. Azleyna also, right? And secondly, of course, is that besides we have invited NACSA as our government stakeholder speaker today, we also invited our industry speaker from NetAssist, right? Mr. Horn. Right, Mr. Horn basically is a graduate of Bachelor of Science, Computer Science, Mathematics from Cambridge University, USA. So he started his career as an engineer in Exto, right? With his experience there is more than 25 years. And I think he is not someone that new to the industry. He has also been a serial entrepreneur in this industry of cybersecurity services, right?
Morning, good morning.
Good morning. So our third panel today is that our very own Murdani. Mr. Murdani is our senior leadership team from MDEC. He is currently the Director of a Digital Infrastructure and Services Division, primarily overseeing the formulation, recommendation, and implementing of division business strategies and initiatives to support MDEC strategic trust in championing digital economy, right? So without further ado, probably is that I would like to give some background to these topics that we want to discuss today, right? As what Ms. Aiza mentioned, is a very exciting experience that we can learn from today is that the cybersecurity is a growing industry whereby, as what Ms. Aiza mentioned, is that the world consumption of cybersecurity will reach about 700 billion ringgit Malaysia by 2024. And nevertheless, I think is that Malaysia actually is the second largest country that consuming the technology and the services of cybersecurity in ASEAN, right? So nevertheless, I think is that with the growing demand of digital economy, I think is that the threats and the boundary of risk is increasing. And I think as agencies that who look into the ecosystem of cybersecurity, nevertheless is that we need to look into how do we govern the risk and the potential of cybersecurity industry. With us today is that our topic basically is that to harness the power of public and public partnership. As part of introductions of MCSS back in October 2020, right? A comprehensive strategy has been developed to look into the evolving of cyber threats through integrated approach and effective model of private and public partnership. So there's 5 strategic pillars that have been lined up. Basically, is the first pillar will be the effective governance and management. This is our first pillar of Malaysia Cybersecurity Strategies to look into how do we actually given a better protections to the critical network infrastructure and also the SMB businesses, and including the private businesses. Secondly, is that the strengthening the legislative framework and enforcement is very important to make sure that we have a legal framework, a law that actually align to the growing threats of cybersecurity. And thirdly, of course, is that with the policy, we need to have a better technology to protect our national sovereignty. So the third pillar actually is that to look into catalyzing world-class technology and R&D and industry locally, right? And fourth, nevertheless, I think we also need to make sure that with the process, with the technology, we need to make sure that we have the people that be able to support this growing demand, the jobs demand, right? So enhancing the capacity and capability buildings, awareness and education is very important under this Malaysia Cybersecurity Strategies. So that will be the four pillar of key strategic trust. And the fifth one will be is that how do we strengthening the global collaborations. I think is that when we look at cybersecurity itself, it's not an in-country challenge, but basically it's a global challenge that we have to recognize, and a global partnership is very, very important. Hence, I think that's why the topic today is that how do we actually harness the power of public-private partnership, because the challenge of cybersecurity is not alone to the government, of course, it's also to the businesses practices, right? So it's very, very important to make sure that we have a shared responsibility among the multiple stakeholders, because neither the government nor the private sector alone has the knowledge, authority, and resources to do this alone, right? So maybe it's that the first topic that we want to discuss today is that we want to look into the area whereby what will be the actions or what will be the strategies that actually are under the Malaysia Cybersecurity Strategies lineup in order to mitigate the evolving threat. One way through the effective model of public and private partnerships. Do you mind to elaborate more on what's considered as an effective model of public and private partnership, and if there are any benchmark that can we use as a good reference? Maybe this question is more relevant to our owner of Malaysia Cyber Strategy, maybe Ms. Azleyna, right? So what will be the you consider as an effective model of PPP and the benchmark that you want to use as a reference? Ms. Azleyna.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Victor. First of all, thank you, MDEC, for inviting NACSA to share the matter discussed with everyone today. Together with the experts in the session. Assalamualaikum and a very good morning to everybody. Basically, our dependency on the cyberspace has somehow increased significantly during this pandemic situation. Threats, risks, and also vulnerabilities stemming from this domain has also been multiplied. So we believe that the government believes that the most effective way in addressing and tackling all of these issues is through a concerted effort at the domestic level using the PPP model of the partnership. Further, as the most of the economies are moving towards the digital economy, a secure and trusted cyberspace is very, very crucial. In relation to that, the government of Malaysia launched our very own Malaysia Cyber Security Strategy, as you mentioned just now, or we call it as MCSS, on 12th of October 2020. So the strategy focused on the three overriding success factors for interrelated and also interdependent organizational change, namely known to everybody, people, process, and also technology. Public-private partnership is indeed very crucial or very essential for every national cybersecurity strategy. I believe that all national cybersecurity strategies include PPP as one of the elements to ensure successful implementation of the strategy. So again, the questions, why do we want to leverage on the PPP? While the government have a responsibility to their citizens to mitigate and control national security risks, threats, and so on, the government usually don't have the authority to direct the control privately owned critical infrastructure asset, or in some other country, they call it as a core technologies. For most nations, the government or the public sector is responsible to protect the national critical infrastructure, or sometimes we call it as a critical national information infrastructure. However, these elements often be owned and operated by private sector, the industry or the organization. Developing partnership between government authorities and also the owner of the infrastructure is a method actually to help ensure the stability and also the availability of this infrastructure, and indirectly to protect the citizens. partnership, one of the model that I can see is actually partnership between government and industry can help the government to disseminate vital information about security threats based on reports, based on the international cooperation, based on other information, the sources that the government have, and also to ensure that we can have a very coordinated, effective incident management, and also to make sure that we as a nation understand the resilience of the critical infrastructure or the critical information infrastructure basically. So it will be something that we can improve for both the government and also the industry to manage the risk related to cybersecurity. Basically, the government have the essential information. The critical infrastructure owners, operators have hands-on access to information on the system itself. So both roles are very, very essential to manage the national cybersecurity basically. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Azleyna. That is a lot of insight information that we can learn, right? I think is that if we look at the national strategy itself, is that cybersecurity may be a very technical subject, but I think is that what we learned from Ms. Azleyna just now is that there's a lot of room for what they call collaborations with the private sector, especially when you look into the area like intelligence, right? Threat intelligence that could be shared to the private sector in order to protect the private sector operations, including the citizens in this case, right? So probably the second questions that I want to discuss, or we want to discuss this morning, is that through this opportunity of what Ms. Azleyna just mentioned, right? There's a lot of vital information or intelligence that could be shared with the private sector, right? So I would like to address these questions to Mr. Horn. So since that you are the what do you call it, service provider from the private sector itself, right? So from the technology point of view, right, or from the operation point of view, perhaps you can share your motivation answering the call to what we call that, the collaborations of PPP or public and private partnership in this case. Mr. Horn, over to you.
Thank you, Victor, and thank you, NDEC, as well as NACSA for the opportunity for this PPP collaboration. From a local service provider point of view, what we see, competition we face are global. Cybersecurity services can be delivered borderless, which means that other countries, especially cybersecurity people, can come into our countries and do the delivery services. So if we were to fight alone ourselves, we have our limited resources to fight with these international big players with our resources. So with various initiatives now from government, they are preparing us the necessary resources, and we actually can then also participate in this as a platform to collaborate among all the different alliances to fight and to provide a total solution to the customers. Government help us by demonstrating the trust in us, so that they also form a form of endorsement, a trust to us, so that the customer have confidence in us. So we see that this is all-win. All-win means that from the service provider point of view, for the end user customer point of view, and from the government point of view, it's a win all. Everybody get to actually benefit from this initiative. Not only in NetAssist, in fact, there are many local companies who have the inspiration to build Malaysian-based cybersecurity products and services. Participating in PPP provide a good role and motivation to the rest of the counter and the counterparts. Together, we build an alliance and we build an ecosystem to help transform the economy of Malaysia. I personally have been actually actively participate in all these government initiatives, especially from MDEC, for the last 5 years. And I must say that we gained tremendous benefit from participating in this PPP's initiative. And the area that we benefited include the market access to local and international customers, the knowledge sharing that we get to learn, the cost reduction because of some incentive and initiative from the government, the talent development, because the MDEC also have this initiative to actually build certain talents for cybersecurity. The hiring process get easier, and of course, for certain cases, you get certain funding from the marketing, the gaining the market access to the international markets. So with that, I strongly encourage all our counterparts in Malaysia to look into this and participate and be active in this PPP. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Mr. Horn. I think that's another very insightful information explaining the example of a PPP. So just let me recap again. I think is that from Azleyna point of view is that the government will have a lot of these first-hand informations that critical to secure not only the public sector, the government, not only the critical national information infrastructures, but a lot of this is that a lot of this information could be applicable to the private sector, whereby in this case, sharing information with private sector, like private operator, like Mr. Horn, or the industry that operating the cybersecurity services will help to enhance the experience of cybersecurity protections for the country, right? For the government and for the businesses operation. And nevertheless, I think is that Mr. Horn just highlight a very, very important point is that besides the protection itself, it's also very, very important to make sure to look into the ecosystem of the cybersecurity. Hence, I think the third topic, the third discussion that we want to bring forward is that since that MDEC is the leading industry development agencies that look into not only the how to help the industry in terms of better protections. We also want to know is that maybe learn from Mr. Murdani is that can Murdani elaborate more on how MDEC sees the opportunity from cybersecurity collaborations and who are the target beneficiaries or should benefit from this effort? Mr. Wan.
Thank you, Victor. Thank you, Victor. Very good morning. Assalamualaikum. Okay, we have to recognize that partnership is inevitable in this kind of environment. Let me put in the context of where MDEC plays a role. MDEC, we drive digital economy development, but we have to recognize that digital journey needs to be secure and safe. So therefore, cybersecurity is one of the key enablers to ensure that we can undertake digital journey in the most safest and effective manner. Then we look at the specific economic sectors that has the most potential to grow in digital economy. So once we recognize that these are the national agenda, then we have to identify who are the stakeholders that have the intervention, that has the intervention power and control in terms of ensuring that we can achieve the aspiration that is tied to that thing. So coming back to the original questions of the strength of the PPP, certainly if we put cybersecurity, recognizing that this is important for our nation, then we have to look at economic sector. Perhaps I want to highlight specific sectors, which is SME. Reason being that it is one of the biggest contributor for national economy. And if you look at the data, about 98% of business establishment in Malaysia are SMEs. So we can see that how important this sector in terms of embracing the digitalization to make sure that they can fulfill the services and requirements of the customers. So hence, with the national policy of NACSA, which is a Malaysia Cyber Security Strategy, and perhaps SME Corp as a custodian of SME sector. So MDEC, that's how we identify who the partners are. So we have to make sure that we recognize what are the pain points of the SMEs and how we can align to national policies and what kind of intervention that has to be put in place and what roles that MDEC has to play, what roles that SME Corp has to play and what roles NACSA has to play to make sure that we can address the issues and challenges, seize the opportunities and come out with a program that can help SME to strengthen and accelerate their digital journey. So if you look at the SMEs, perhaps I want to highlight a few key things here. In terms of cyber incidents, 84% of Malaysian SME affected by cyber incidents. And in the wake of the pandemic, 35% of workforce continue to working remotely, work from home. So that have given us more sense and agency for us to make sure that we can collaborate. We can establish a certain baseline, certain intervention to make sure that we can safeguard the digital journey undertaken by SMEs. So in that sense, we also recognize that SMEs has its own challenges as well, lack of tools, lack of knowledge. They could become the easy target and lack of resources. So recognizing that these are the challenges faced by the SMEs, so what is needed for the partners is to come out with a specific program that can help to bridge the gaps, can help to accelerate the adoption by SMEs in terms of accessing to the cybersecurity services that could help them to address the challenges day in and day out challenges that faced by them, and how we can make it easy for them, cost effective, and then provide the solutions through partnership with industry partners. And obviously, part of our partnership requires support from the industry partners, because they are the one that will be providing the services to the SMEs. So we need to ensure that services provided to SMEs are the ones that are affordable, and also the one that addresses the right or what the actual challenges and problems faced by the SME. So if I may want to sum up, we value partnership highly, and we want to make sure that all of our stakeholders can benefit through this partnership. So that's our view on the partnership. Back to moderator. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Murdani. I think it's a very good summary of our first conversations, whereby how we connect the word of cybersecurity with PPP, because we've seen that from the introductions of PPP model, I think there's a lot of benefits that we can actually learn from national infrastructures, whereby a lot of good intelligence of threats and cybersecurity. Because as what we learned today is that cybersecurity attacks is not to the specific organization. Cybersecurity attacks is to the country, and the attacks could be the same as any other country out there, right? So informations or intelligence that currently NACSA may aggregate or may make available to the private sector will help to strengthen the protection strategies of the industry, because our service provider today is actually the private sector that actually protecting our key businesses that are operating and providing their services to the citizens. So we have a very good connections between these two areas of opportunities. And nevertheless, I think what we can learn from our panel speaker from NetAssist, Mr. Horn, actually highlighted is that besides looking at the intelligence of PPP, there's a lot of collaborations between the service provider to work together and to provide a more comprehensive service to the industry. So that's the second thing, the takeaway. And third thing, of course, is that what Mr. Murdani mentioned is that don't forget that all those things that we try to prepare for the country is to help a certain line of business, right? In this case, Mr. Murdani actually highlighted that the SME is a critical sector to the country because of not only the maturity of the businesses in Malaysia, but it's also the key contributor to the GDP of the country and providing the largest employment for the country. And I think is that the future is going to be a lot of hurdles that we have to embrace. And but we believe is that with the word of PPP, I think there's a lot of challenges that we could overcome, right? So I would like to bring the conversation into the next area of topics, whereby I said if we all agree that PPP is a way to work to harness and to enhance and to sustain the growing industry, right? So what would be the models that we could practice? So I think there was a recent launch of during the recent Cyber Defense and Security Exhibition and Conference 2021, CIDES 2021, Matrix Cybersecurity for SME program was launched, a collaborative program between NACSA, the Malaysia Digital Economy Corporation, and the SME Corp, as well as 6 technology partners, and to boost the cybersecurity adoptions and implementation among the SME from all sectors in Malaysia. As what Mr. Murdani just mentioned is that our biggest beneficiary program that we want to run for PP actually is that how do we support the business, right? So this question probably I want to direct to Mr. Wan is that MDEC as a lead agency in digital transformation welcome the increase of collaborations between governments, key technology stakeholder and partners to accelerate the national digitalization's agenda, where cybersecurity is identified as key enabler. Right, we have to all agree that with the growing rate of digital economy, cybersecurity actually as a key pillar of enabler, right? Where cybersecurity today is that would you be able to share and explain that how Matrix being collaborative program can benefit SME and afford proactive attitude in case of crisis and cyber incidents? Mr. Wan?
Thank you, Mr. Victor. So as I said earlier, we have certainly recognized SMEs as one of the most important economic sectors, and recognizing that they are about to embrace digital journey. So we, through the partnership with, again, we value the partnership that we have with NACSA, with SME Corp, and also our technology partners. So we have come out with a program, what we call metrics. So this is a classic example of how the PPP is being established. As I said before, the prerequisite of PPP is you have to identify who are the target beneficiaries. So in this case, specifically it is targeted at SMEs. And we know SME Corp is a custodian of SME community. So they know the best what type of SMEs that is out there that is most ready for us to touch. So in this case, aligning back to NACSA strategies of MCSS of promoting local solutions and driving the adoption, we have also engaged with technology partners because they have a different facets of services targeting a different set of challenges. So we like to thank them for being part of the partner. So what we envisage from this metric is a platform, a shared platform that will enable the services to be delivered to SMEs by various industry partners and targeting at specific SME segment and recognizing that the financial constraints of SMEs. So what would be the packages that would fit into their budget and what is the priority that we want to address. So it is the principle of metric is simple and faster. Simple in the sense that it is easy to adopt, provide savings to the businesses and reduce the man hours, and smarter as well because we want to make sure that SMEs stays ahead of the challenges, and also looking at cybersecurity as to create new sources of growth and eventually increase revenues and providing more jobs to the citizen. So these are the intent, the primary intent of metric which was launched last month. We hope that this metric will be able to connect the supplier from each side with the demand side from the SME sectors. So then we're going to ask ourselves what would be the specific intervention that we want to make sure that SMEs can easily adopt, can easily subscribe to services. So we look at the visibility. We have to make sure that metrics includes the 24/7 monitoring because attacks and threats can come anywhere, anytime of the day. So we have to make sure that they have the visibility in terms of the risk that they are exposed to, and they can have that kind of assessment through subscription of services provided by those service providers through the platform. And secondly, once they are taken care in terms of the risk, and then now the second one is more on the protection of critical assets. So this is very important. We want to make sure that every investments made by SMEs are being protected through various means. So the services has to cover this thing as well. The third one is more, the third and the fourth one is more on the taking care of the transactional services undertaken by SMEs in the form of digital signature for security and efficiency, remote monitoring, and also the secure web browsing internet access. So these are very important because SMEs are expected to undertake certain services and transact certain services through the internet. So we want to make sure that they have all-rounded kind of protection that will enable them to undergo digital journey in the safest manner. So if metrics can offer these four types of services, it will certainly flatten the curve of cyber risk for SME businesses. So that is the intention of metrics. We want to make it easy for SMEs for them to be able to be ready in terms of attack, to be able to seize the opportunities, and to be able to grow in digital economy. So you have to take care of your back end in terms of cyber risk. So metrics is intended to provide that kind of services to the SMEs in the most affordable and cost-effective manner. And again, through the support from the various industry partners who have its own domain expertise in terms of addressing this any specific type of cyber security services that are required by the SMEs. So in essence, there is metric for SMEs. So the partnership is very important. Without the partnership, metric is not going to be delivered easily because each of us has to do other things. I don't think every stakeholders have have the breadth and depth and resources to do all the things, and we have to come to a common agenda, common objective, come up with a right intervention program for the benefit of specific community, which is in this case SMEs. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wan. Right. So I think is that what we're just here for the last 5 minutes actually is that we hear the practice of setting up a PPP model, which leveraging on a sharing economy of cybersecurity to put all these capabilities like how to begin, what should be the priority, and what will be the funding assistance or the other financial assistance that could be available, and make it work for the SME. I think the end of the day that we want to achieve for the SME actually is to help them to flatten the curve of cyber attack, because it's that if they cannot back, the idea is that to get them back to the original operation of the business and focus on the priority of SMB business, right? So maybe is that I want to take the conversation forward with an example, right? I would like to address this conversation with Mr. Horn, right? It is unavoidable that digital transformation increase the SME exposure to digital security risks. Likelihood to be victim of cybercrime, I think as what has been mentioned by Mr. Wan, is that 84% of SME businesses actually experience a cyber incidents, right? So the mention of the 4 area implementation in metrics, would you be able to elaborate specifically is that what is the meaning of 24/7 monitoring that you're providing, and how it helps the SME to better respond for cyber incidents, Mr. Horn?
Hi, let me start first by explaining this concept of SOC, Security Operations Center. It is a 24/7 center operating where there's a few team of security experts working together. Some do some analysis of malware, some do monitoring of the traffic pattern, network pattern, some do the application activities monitoring, some detect the abnormal user behavior. They work together with different tools, correlate, contextualize the incident, and help the end user to detect any abnormal behavior and possible cyber attack and respond to all this attack. Majority of cyber attack happen especially in the place that typically allowed by a firewall, allowed by antivirus. A lot of people say, hey, I have got my antivirus, I got my firewall. Isn't it enough? But based on our experience, we have seen big organizations, billions of dollars of investment into technologies, but yet the cyber attacks still happen because the criminal know where is the loophole and go into the way that allowed by a firewall, allowed by an antivirus. Which is why many regulatory bodies like Bank Negara, some of these certification bodies are already giving encouragement, or actually in fact some make it mandatory to say, hey, you must actually do all this monitoring. However, to do all this monitoring, you need to actually invest into the people, the process and technology. The cost is actually a lot. So which is why big organizations can do it. However, SME, they're equally having the same type of attack. But this is I call it unfair disadvantage. Unfair disadvantage whereby the threat is the same, but they do not have the kind of resources. And the people who are looking into this and who need to actually understand this are those people who have the connectivity. You are doing international business, you're connected to the internet. So you have a connectivity where your traffic is going up. And exactly the same place, the hackers, the criminal can come in. So what we do as a security operations center is that we collect those activities of in and out, your server activities. We don't collect any confidential information. It's just a type of activity, the pattern of the traffic. And then from there, we look for any indication of possibly being attacked, being compromised, and we inform and we help you to respond on it. So that's what a security operations center do. And this can be done by actually leveraging on metrics. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Horn. I think in a very easy way to understand the whole conversation actually is that if we put ourselves as that, if we're running the business of digital economy, right, your business run 24/7, right? And it's very important, as what Mr. Horn just mentioned, is that how do you actually to ensure that your business can actually operate by 24/7 and to serve your customer, right? So one way to do it actually is to outsource this responsibility to a third party provider like Mr. Horn to actually help to monitor all these threats, and they have the expertise they have the right skill set, and they have the right processes to manage all these challenges. So as an SMB business owner, we just have to focus on SMB business and leave the cybersecurity operation to someone that has more experience and expertise. And in terms of cost-wise, even more what do you call that, practical for the businesses, right? So I think from the SME probably is that, or from the private sector, probably we have to switch here a bit. Is that as NACSA, right? How do you see the potential of a collaborative program such as metric to coexist in the ecosystem to boost the effectiveness of government has so far? What we learned so far is that we have been discussing how to boost the private sector, right? I think is that the similar capability can actually help to enhance the government operations. So maybe Ms. Azleyna, you could share your insight on this.
Okay, thank you. As I mentioned before about MCSS, it is developed to be more inclusive and also comprehensive to cover the protection of critical national information, businesses, MSME, and also SME industry, and also the citizen. So of course, during the development of the strategy, lesson that we learned from the previous national cybersecurity policy was taken into account. Secondly, the ranking that we received for our global cybersecurity index, or also known as the GCI, whereby one of the elements for GCI is about cooperation, which is for PPP and also international fora involvement and so on. So in ensuring the successful of this implementation, of course, the partnership between public and private sector is very, very crucial. So to echo what Murdani mentioned just now with regards to the metrics, the program metrics basically, for NACSA, we don't see this as one of the, we don't see it as fulfilling only one of the pillar of the MCSS, which is pillar number 3. It's about having more cybersecurity technology solution, homegrown industry and so on. But we also see this as part of the fulfillment for the pillar number 1 of MCSS, whereby when it comes to specific protection of the SME, we are actually creating an ecosystem with a clear roles and responsibility for all agencies involved to ensure effective governance and also management. So essentially, the metric program is one of the instances in which strategic partnership between public and private sector come in place to support the initiative. Also to echo what Murdani just mentioned just now, about 84% SME has been affected or experienced cybersecurity issues. Of course, whether they like it or not, to survive during this pandemic time, all sectors must quickly embrace digitalization to keep the business afloat. So this has somehow translated into an increased online transaction, heavy reliance on digital solution. So this development somehow definitely describe that SME are also equally vulnerable for this kind of attack, cybersecurity attacks basically. So cybersecurity is also equally important to the SME. We believe also that few noteworthy points would be by having metrics as one of the PPP model, it will also ensure that we can produce a product which is more effective to protect the SME, and also indirectly to help the optimization of resources to assist the SME basically. There's no need for us to actually reinvent any wheel because the solution is already there. We just do the promotion about it, making sure that people understand how to embark on it and also indirectly protect themselves whenever they're doing online businesses. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Azleyna. I think the keyword from your sharing just now, I think, is the keyword is actually optimization, right? I think is that there's no reason why we need to spend the same resources but addressing the same problem, right? So it's actually a lot of opportunity that we can put the private sector, the public sector together and look into a common objective and be able to optimize the resources. So in the last 10 minutes, probably is that we want to zoom into specific to the future. I think is that we're discussing more about the metrics, we're discussing more about the Malaysia Cyber Security strategies, but then looking forward for the next 4 or 5 years, right? We look into the MyDigital Blueprint. announcement, right? Expected to have the SME, or especially in this case, that to have 70% of the companies adopt cybersecurity measures by 2025. I think that's a very, very big objective that we all have to look into and to support the MyDigital Blueprint, right? End of the day is that once we have the metrics, once we have the PPP, what will be the outcome that we're expecting? I think that the idea is how do we seize the adoption of businesses to achieve 70% of adoption rate, right? So as a private sector of collaborative PPP of metrics for cybersecurity SME, what's your parting message to our SME friends in this case, probably Mr. Horn?
Embracing new norm is something that we can't run away. Embracing new norm means digitalization and more connectedness. And the natural problem come along with this cyber threats. Because in fact, you can see that the threat is increasing. People are actually doing more criminals online. It's more profitable for people to do criminal online actually. So whoever can solve the problem of these cyber criminals and cyber threat and do more with connectivity, you are ready to be transformed. Cybersecurity do not necessarily become a cause of you doing business. It can be seen as an enabler, as a differentiator between you versus your competitor. Imagine that you can tell your customer, say, hey, I am serious about my cybersecurity. It's better and safer to do business with me comparing to my competitor. So SME need to actually start changing and do this. But the challenge is that they are actually now also facing the challenge of a shortage of talent and the cost of catching up with all these cyber threats, the budget that you need to allocate for investment into technology. So which is why PPP would be a good way, and you actually can talk to people who are participating, the vendors who are participating in this PPP, and they're actually talking about the concept of sharing of economy in the sense of instead of doing everything yourself, now at the fraction of the cost, someone invested there and then they're sharing the technology, the resources with you. So you get to enjoy the similar level of protection without the entire full force of resources that it costs. With that, I hope and I encourage everybody to actually look into it, and together, let's grow and transform our economy. Thank you very much.
Right. So thank you, Mr. Horn. Right, I think is that moving on to the last 5 minutes of the conversation today for this morning first session, right? I would like to ask 2 more questions to the panel here today. Maybe this question specific to Mr. Wan to address, right? Would you mind to elaborate what's the aspiration of metrics program and the relevancies to achieve the national agenda of having 70% adoptions? Mr. Wan?
Thank you, Victor. So let me just sum up the aspiration of metric into segments. One is on the industry development. We want to make sure that metrics provides a pivotal transformation for SME to adopt, and also by adopting, that means that they can grow and further contribute to GDP. On the industry side, we want to make sure that we have matured homegrown industry players who are ready to support and to address our national challenges. So just linking back to what MCSS expression is all about, we have to make sure that we provide enough support to produce local technologies that would protect our own national challenges. So it is very important that sovereignty of technology is being taken care of. So metric is one of the platform that will enable that to happen. And on the adoption side is we want to make sure that metrics really addresses the adoption challenges of SMEs by knowing what are the problems, and by providing the problems that will empower them, that will simplify their businesses, that will make them become smarter in terms of business execution. So these are the demand side that we want to make sure that metrics is able to serve both from the supply and demand side. And eventually, we have to always link back metric to our national agenda. First is how you support the expression of MCSS in terms of protecting our local SMEs and growing them in the digital economy, and also how do we map it into the MyDigital agenda in strengthening the cybersecurity ecosystem. So metrics, we want to make sure that it can fit nicely into the national strategy. And given that metric is a platform, a sharing platform that looks into the threats, responses, and intelligence exchange, we foresee, envisage that it will be integrated with NC4, which is National Cyber Coordination and Command Center. So to make sure that those two are aligned, and metric will play its own role in terms of addressing specific problems of specific economic sectors, and without forgetting that it has to be aligned back to our national challenges and what kind of advisory notes that can be trickled down to a metrics platform so that we can realize the full benefit of this thing. So in terms of numbers, in terms of long-term target, we are looking at least 10,000 local SMEs to have the cybersecurity capabilities and be competitive in digital economy. So we want to metric to be the enabler of that aspiration of the targeting that 10,000 local SMEs. So this is what we envisage for metric, and we hope that we are getting the support from the partners, from our stakeholders, from industry players, from SMEs, and from other economic sectors that will uplift the capability of metric towards achieving the aspiration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wan. Probably the last 2 minutes, if I can address it to Ms. Azleyna, right? I think it's that as what we hear so much from the two other panel speakers, that what would be these aspirations to address the government objective, especially the MCSS and MyDigital?
Thank you, Mr. Victor. So MCSS is the document that outlines the 5 strategic pillars that will be guiding principles for us actually to improve the cybersecurity management for the next 5 years, inshallah, God willing. All the action plans that we have under the MCSS will be aligned with the MyDigital initiative as key elements to achieve the vision of building a secure, trusted, and also resilient cyberspace. And we do understand the challenges the SME face in general, constraint of budget, lack of skills, expertise. Nevertheless, we would like to call upon all SMEs to think cybersecurity differently. Having the metrics would be one of the solutions actually to address the SME cybersecurity challenges and act as a catalyst for the successful of SMEs in the area of digital economy, and at the same time to scale up the digital transformation of the SMEs. With the introduction of the MyDigital also, it actually symbolized the aspiration of the government to successfully transform Malaysia into a digital-driven, high-income nation and also regional leader in digital economy. So definitely this will also bring together a range of different government works program together with the industry via PPP, via collaboration and so on, to include in terms of the how we can boost the digital programs devoted to energize the SMEs, the digital identity, trust framework, regulatory framework, to support the increase of public trust in uptake of online services. And definitely metrics must be one of the solutions basically to be in this particular initiative. So as mentioned by Murdani just now with regards to the NC4, of course, we look into our enhanced National Cyber Coordination and Command Center, NC4, whereby inshallah we will have more intelligence to be shared with all the organization in Malaysia, to have more SOCs to be connected with our NC4 so that we can have more information and more that we can share to ensure that Malaysia has a secure, trusted and also resilient cyberspace. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Azleyna. So that concludes the panel session, first panel session for this morning. The key word to summarize, I think, is optimization. Is how do we optimize the resources from the industry, especially the government operations, and how we connect it to the private sector and to make it more effective for the businesses to protect their business. For the SME is that do leverage on this opportunity. I think is that what we have here today is that why do it yourself, whereby you can leverage on other third party that can actually do it better at a lower cost and better efficiency, right? So I would like to urge everyone who is in this call today to look into the program called Metrics. Just go to MDEC/Metrics. Then they will be able to have that program is actually published on the website, and that you can learn more about how this program can benefit your business, right? I would like to hand the floor back to our MC for this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Victor, and to all our esteemed panel members for the engaging panel session on public-private partnership. Yes, keywords are trust, secure, and ethical. We will now be moving forward to our next session of the day. It will begin very shortly, so do click join session. Please complete the survey for each session as we try to continuously serve you better, and we'll see you back in a bit. Thank you.
Thank you.